Hi, I'm Rachel, and this is my AM reading video for Friday, February 13th, 2026, going up on a Saturday. It's been a long time since I've done this particular routine. Even when I made AM reading videos of late, it seemed like I just was squeezing them in on random days whenever I felt I actually had something to talk about. But this month I really dedicated myself to sticking to a calendar for my booktube videos. So here I am, and I'm very excited to be back. I think these AM reading videos are also relatively popular and a fun chance to check in about reading, hopefully in a quick way before the sun completely comes in on my face this morning. We shall see. So the thing about these AM reading videos that I tend to do 3 times a month is I start with a short story collection from a literary journal. So that means I'm finally picking up Boulevard. These are issues 107 and 108 from 2021. And just to show the inconsistency of my AM reading videos, I started reading these short stories in July, and I only read 3 per month. But now, actually, we're on to the very last short story in the collection, and then next week I'll be moving on to a new literary journal. But anyway, this week I will be reviewing Magnolia Knoll by Josh Rolnick. And this is a story that takes place in a retirement home, and it also has some pretty robust assisted living facilities, especially for dealing with elderly or senior couples, and the two members might be at different stages of life, which is what's happening here. Our POV character is one of the practitioners named Sherry, and she's trying to sell the place to the senior man, who is in generally better shape than his wife, but he, is used to, where he lives and what he likes, and he thinks he can, go ahead and take care of her on his own, even though they've had some health scares and she's been in the hospital and really needs very consistent care. And, there is such a thing as finances and how long his are going to last before you're out of options. And this particular nursing facility, it's really nice because you kind of buy in early and then the state will take care of you when your own funds dwindle. That's how I understood it, which is stunning to me because I just remember with my great aunt recently, her funds were a huge part of our concern about her care and what would happen when she ran out, which ultimately she was in some pretty nice places before she reached the end, so I guess in a way that was fortunate. Anyway, so this crotchety old man also has his son there who, the narrative reminds us is running out of days off of work to help with his parents. So the truth is, sometimes there's just limited options and people can't stay at home as big families. So that's one scenario, but Sherry is our POV, so we do get a little bit of her own personal story about the fact that her husband recently left her and had an affair, and she has these 2 teenage sons she loves, but they can also be troublemakers and not all that considerate of, her life either. So at the end of the story, there's an interesting juxtaposition because, well, she has some trouble actually getting in the inns with this elderly man. First of all, elder is a big term they use in the facility, and it starts to feel like these people are commodities or something. I don't know. It didn't, but that's something where it seems like they don't connect either. And then she doesn't know his honorific, that he was a doctor, and she's calling Mister in the beginning. So he comes in sort of defensive or argumentative, but it takes a little time. But I think they ultimately find a little bit of common ground before he finally relents to, move here. And so the end of the story, it does kind of show, these are 2 people who, life took them somewhere they didn't want to be, but you kind of just have to deal with it. So yeah, I mean, it was kind of exposition heavy, especially when we're just in Shari's backstory. And, obviously it's not apples to apples talking about moving into a retirement home versus having your husband leave you, although it happens pretty significantly. But anyway, I thought this was a nice little slice of life to end on, a little bit of nice connection between people. Speaking of connections between people, I'll move on to the first book, the only one I finished this week, which is Cult Classic by Sloane Crosley. And this is a little bit of a speculative setup, significantly speculative setup, where the main character is a woman named Lola who is about to get married and, you know, has some cold feet questions about that, and a long history of dating behind her, which she calls serial monogamy. And she starts to run into her exes all over New York, kind of, and like revisit the past and what if we worked out or whatever. And so that's the setup. And I feel like maybe if there wasn't some sort of backstory to that, it would have been more annoying to me. But actually, weirdly enough, her boss is some guru with a lot of money, and he's trying to sell like some sort of fast therapy experience where people can interact with their loved ones from the past, or you know, their old flings from the past, and then learn how to move forward without years of therapy or something like that. It's really ridiculous, and it does sound like a cult, so that's the only thing that necessarily makes sense about it. It's not scientifically at all possible what they're doing about having this team that organizes her to run into her old partners or whatever. But I don't know, you know, Crosley's a snarky writer and she's sort of a cultural writer, so I think that appeals to some people. This usually isn't the sort of thing really that appeals to me. Although it's interesting for me to read this after her memoir, because I feel like I see, you know, some similarities between her and the main character, or some of the other characters in the book and characters from her real life that were in the memoir. But I guess I did bring up connections because I just can't help but look at this sort of stuff and the way that writers like Sloane Crosley and then Lauren Euler wrote from a few months ago, a book I read and really disliked a few months ago. These culture writers, they're just so self-absorbed, completely self-absorbed, that really seems to be the real problem with the relationships, that nobody's in a full relationship with each other. And so even the way they're talking about relationships, and the whole point of the book in a way is her having to get over the past and embrace the future, but I never fully got a sense that she and her partner, or any of her partners, were in a full relationship with each other. They were just sort of bouncing off of each other. I don't know, although I've, you know, never actually been in a lot of relationships, or actually, frankly, I've never been in any romantic relationships, so what do I know? And in fact, to a certain degree, I was relating because of the idea of intense friendships I've had and, you know, regretting how they ended and that sort of thing. So maybe I'd benefit from something like this. So I do feel like I like this better than the Lauren Euler book. Well, that's frankly just not a very high bar. And I'm completely wrong about the sun coming in and messing up the lighting here, but luckily I only have one more book left to share, and that is Dead and Alive. These are essays by Zadie Smith, where she's tackling a lot of different cultural issues from movies and art shows and the nature of fiction and what have you. And that's all I will say about this book, because I am reading it for the BookTube Prize. So the BookTube Prize started in 2019. As imagined and amazingly facilitated by our director, Robert. The intention was to bring the literary bookdernet together to judge the best in literary fiction and nonfiction published in English in the US the year before. So this year we are judging 2025 releases. And as you can see, I am starting off as an official judge in the nonfiction division. I am judging Ballot G, which means that I'm pitching this book against the 5 others in the ballot, and then deciding which ones I want to advance to the next round. We are in round 1 of 4 that's going to take us through the year until we get to some winners and runners-up. But anyway, as I'm reading, I'm zipping my lips so as not to influence any other judges. But if you'd like to hear my preliminary thoughts about my ballot, or just see a link to the BookTube Prize website, those are listed down below. And that about covers it for me. Man, oh man, I might have to decide what to do about this, although part of me just kind of wants to take it in stride rather than use it as another excuse to put off making videos. There's a reason I'm a small fry booktuber, I think. Anyway, I hope to be back on this channel in the next couple of days. I actually have a long weekend coming up, and maybe that's a nice chance to read even more short stories for a short story spotlight video. if I can get them in, because actually I may also be going to my parents' house. My mom's birthday was a recent occurrence, so it'd be nice to see them as well. But anyway, stay tuned. I'm going to see if I can keep sticking to this schedule I've made for myself, so I should be back soon, you know, knock on wood, with a short story video. And I hope you're all doing well with your reading as we are getting to the midpoint of the month. I hope if I've talked a bit about relationships and romantic relationships, so if you're going to be celebrating Valentine's Day soon, I hope you have a good one with your partners. And thanks so much for watching, everyone. I'll see you next time.